She says he had painted all over the walls, her clothes, everything using his own blood. Okay, Johnny Depp is on the stand now. Johnny Depp, let's listen.
Tell the jury why you're here today.
Yes. About 6 years ago, Ms. Heard made some quite heinous and disturbing, brought these disturbing criminal acts against me that were not based in any species of truth. It was a complete shock that it just didn't need to go in that direction, as nothing of the kind had ever happened. Though the relationship, there were arguments and things of that nature, but never did I myself reach the point of striking Miss Heard in any way, nor have I ever struck any woman in my life. And so at the time, because the news of this, her accusations had sort of permeated the industry and then made its way through media and social media, became quite a global let's say, quote unquote, fact, if you will. And since I knew that there was no truth to it whatsoever, I felt it my responsibility to stand up not only for myself in that instance, but stand up for my children, who at the time were 14 and 16, and so they were in high school, and I thought it was diabolical that my children would have to go to school and have their friends or people in the school approach them with the infamous People magazine cover with Miss Heard with a dark bruise on her face. And then it just kept it kept multiplying. It just kept getting bigger and bigger. So it was my responsibility, I felt, to not only attempt to clear my name for the sake of, well, for many reasons, but I wanted to clear my children of this horrid thing that they were having to read about their father, which was untrue. And also, after many years of being in this industry, at the time, I'd probably been in the industry 30 plus years, 35 years. Never had any problems, anything like that. And I had met many people over the years, many of the people, and had the opportunity to talk to those people and to even give advice to these people. And I'm I'm not, my goal is the truth. My goal is the truth because it killed me that people that I had spoken with, that I had met with over the years, who maybe were in a not such a great position and they needed advice, and I gave them the best advice I could. All I could think of was that those people would think that I was a fraud and that I had lied to them. And so I had to wait for my opportunity to address the charges, which were criminal charges. And they just weren't true. So I felt the responsibility of clearing the record as the only way that I could get to the point where I could speak has really taken this full 6 years. And it's been 6 years of trying times. It's very strange when one day you're Cinderella, so to speak, and then in 0.6 seconds you're Quasimodo. And I didn't deserve that, nor did my children, nor did the people who have believed in me for all these years. I didn't want any of those people to believe that I had done them wrong or lied to them or that I was a fraud. I pride myself on honesty. I pride myself on truth. Truth is the only thing I'm interested in. Other lies will get you nowhere, but lies build upon lies and build upon lies. It's too much to cover. I'm obsessed with the truth, and so today is the first opportunity that I've been able to speak about this case in full for the first time.
Mr. Depp, how do you feel about the intimate details of your life being aired in this process?
As a father, raising kids, when they were very, very little, it was important to me, very important to me, to try to shield my children as much as possible from looking at their father or their mom, for that matter, as novelties. I didn't want my children to experience hordes of paparazzis. So I was always a very private person. So for me to come up here and stand before you or sit before you all and spill the truth is quite exposing. And it's unfortunate that it's not only exposing for myself, it's exposing for my family, it's exposing for Miss Heard, it's exposing for, it never had to go in this direction. And so I can't say that I'm embarrassed because I know that I'm doing the right thing.
Now, Mr. Depp, I'd like to turn a bit to your upbringing. We heard a bit from your sister Christy last week, but can you please tell the jury in your own words about your childhood upbringing?
I had a very interesting childhood, one that I thought was normal until a certain age. My mother, I was born in Kentucky, and then we moved, in which we moved around quite a lot when I was a kid. So you were always just, my mom had this, her feet were on fire and she had to move, so we moved constantly. So you were always the new kid, and that wasn't ever particularly pleasant. Then we moved to Florida, South Florida, when I was about 7 or 8. And again, moved several times. But my mother was quite unpredictable. She was very unpredictable. She was she had the ability to be as cruel as anyone can be, with all of us. That is to say, my sister Christy and my brother Danny and my sister Debbie, and also my father. So essentially, she was she could become quite violent, and she was quite violent, and she was quite cruel, and though there was physical abuse, certainly, which could be in the form of an ashtray being flung at you, it hits you in the head, or you'd get beat with a high heel shoe or a telephone or whatever's handy. So in our house, we were never exposed to any type of safety or security. The only thing that one could do, really, was to try to stay out of the line of fire. I started to be able to observe, and I could start to see when she was about to head into a situation where she was going to get riled up, and somebody was going to get it. Generally, it was me.
Mr. Depp, you mentioned that your mother could be cruel. How could she be cruel?
The various categories, I suppose, there's physical violence, of course. There's physical abuse, to which she was. That was a constant. That was just a constant, We were all somewhat shell-shocked, Even if she just walked past us, you'd sort of shield yourself because you didn't know what was going to happen. Excuse me. And so there was the physical abuse, which was a constant. There was quite a lot of verbal abuse. There was quite a lot of name calling and bullying. Making fun of whatever defect one might have. If my brother wore glasses, so of course he was four eyes, or and his teeth were messed up in the front, so he was buck-toothed as well. My sister Christy, which this is such a hideous psychological play. My father's parents were quite refined. My mother comes from Eastern Kentucky, which is where you grow up in shacks and hollers. And my grandmother's name was Violet. And
Are we back now?
every
Are we
now
good?
and again, you would hear my mother just scream across the house,
Sorry about that.
"Come here, Violet. Get in here, Violet." And Christy, my sister, knew very well that that was a deep cut psychologically, emotionally. But we had to take it. I mean, you just had to take the pain. I was born with a very strange, it was a very rare thing in my eye, as the back of the lens is spherical. Normally, is spherical. So in this eye, it isn't normal. This eye, I was born with a more conical lens, so my brain never learned to see out of my left eye. And they noticed when I was about 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, that I had a lazy eye, a wandering eye, and she would call me cockeye, one eye, anything she could get to demean, humiliate. I even had to wear an eye patch on my good eye to strengthen my bad eye, so that it would cease to wander. With it was exercising the muscles of the eye, though the brain had never learned to see. So I still, my vision in my left eye is, I'm legally blind in my left eye. But so yeah, the verbal abuse, the psychological abuse was almost worse than the beatings, because the beatings were just physical pain, and the physical pain you learn to deal with, you learn to accept it, you learn to deal with it. But the psychological and emotional abuse, that's what kind of tore us up, I think.
What about your father? What was he like?
My father was a very kind man. In fact, my father's still alive. He's a very kind man. He's a very quiet man. In fact, he's very shy. Not a confrontational person in any way. And when Betty Sue, my mother, would go off on a tangent toward my father, and of course in front of the kids it was no matter to her. He amazingly remained very, very stoic, and never, as she was rationing him with horrible things, he stood there and just looked at her while she delivered the pain, and he swallowed it. He took it. There was never one moment, never a moment when my father lost control and attacked my mother or hit my mother or even said a bad thing to my mother. The things that I witnessed were, there were a couple of times when it got too far that I could see his eyes welling up as he was staring at her, saying nothing. And then the most that he would do is he would punch a wall.
Sorry about that.
I once saw him punch a wall and shatter his hand because it wasn't drywall. It was proper concrete and steel wire and rebar and things of that nature. And but still, never touched her, never argued with her. He remained a gentleman, and to me, as a 5-year-old boy, I kept thinking to myself, I kept wondering why does he take it? How does he take this? And why doesn't he leave her? But he didn't, he was able to maintain his calm and his composure. He was able to maintain his relationship with his children. He was a good man. He is a good man.
You mentioned that you saw your father punch a wall. How many times did you witness that?
I mean, out of, I couldn't count the amount of fights that they had, but I know that I've seen my father strike a wall 2 or 3 times tops. Once when he broke his hand, but yeah, 2, 3 times at tops.
Was your father ever abusive to you or any of your siblings?
No, my father was never. My father was not an abusive man. At the same time, my father was also, to some degree, at the mercy of Betty Sue, because if he argued with what she wanted done, that would just turn into another barrage of hatred towards him. So I can remember my father coming home from work, and maybe I'd gotten a bad report card, or maybe I'd gotten in trouble at school, or something like that. And my father would arrive home from work, and the first thing she would say was, "John, take him out there. He gets the belt. Give him the belt." And he wanted to know what it was about, so he'd take me out to the garage, and I'll never forget this white, thick leather 1970s era, thick leather white belt that he would take off, and then he would commence to inflict the punishment on me. But interestingly, there was one time when my father, I kept telling him I didn't do this. It was another incident. I kept swearing to him that I did not do what Betty Sue, what my mom had said that I'd done. But he went through with the punishment anyway. And then, not long after, he found out that I had been telling the truth and that I hadn't done what what my mom had said that I'd done. And he came to me and apologized to me for having gone through with the whipping, you know, the belt. And I have to say, my mom never did that. She couldn't. She knew what she knew. She was raised how she was raised. And I had no power to change what was inside of her, you know.
How did your parents' relationship ultimately come to an end, to your understanding?
When my father left, I didn't realize that he had left. He left for, I was 15. I had already left school, and I was a musician. I was playing in clubs and such. And he left for work one morning, just like every day, and was packing his car, and then he left. And then hours later, my mom, Betty Sue, came home from work. It was about 3:30 in the afternoon. And she walked in the door and stopped and just looked around like she felt something. And I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "Your daddy's gone." I said, "Well, yeah, I seen him leave for work this morning." She said, No, he's gone, he's gone. And she ran into their bedroom and into their closet, and I followed her, and she opened the door, and there was his rack of clothing and all his belongings were gone. And she was quite upset. And I took her car and drove to my father's work, and I sat down in front of him at 15, and I said, "Listen, seems as though somebody stole all your clothes out of the closet." And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I can't live it anymore. You're the man. You're the man now." And those words didn't quite sit well with me. I didn't feel like I was ready to hear those words, but that's what I got. Then my mom went into a very, very dark place, a very deep, dark depression, as you can imagine. And one afternoon, I woke up. I'd fallen asleep, and I woke up and walked out into the living room, and I saw my mother, very feebly, and like almost, it was like a slow motion crawl. If I could stand up, I could show you just what I saw. Do you mind? Do you
No,
want
you can stand up.
Thank you. I saw my mother, you know, in that mode. So instantly, I knew that something was dreadfully wrong, and there's drool coming out of her mouth. And as I was about to run and call, the front door busted open, and my uncle and two paramedics came in and threw on the gurney and whisked her out of the house to get her to the hospital to pump her stomach. She had swallowed a multitude of pills to try to take herself out, to try to commit suicide. And when she got out of the hospital, she was a small firecracker of a woman. She was about 5'2". But when she got out of the hospital, the depression was so deep. She was down to, like, she lived on the couch and she weighed about 70 pounds. And that all that imagery spun into my head at that time, that I thought that was in my head at the time, I thought that was a cowardly way for my father to have left. And I was deeply upset by that. Until my father and I had a conversation years later, where I asked him what really happened, how did it happen when I was older, and he told me the story.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Sure.
Oh, may we approach? I hate when I got to turn the mics off. So, just figured I'd take a break from politics and whatever else to see what
All
goes
right,
on
you've
in
been watching
Hollywood.
Johnny Depp testify in his trial against his ex-wife. It is a defamation suit. He's suing for $50 million. Mark Eiglarsh is joining us right now. Mark, we'll go back to the courtroom there in Virginia in just a moment.
Thought just take a
React to what
break
we
from the
had just
norm,
heard so far with
politics,
Johnny Depp
or
starting out by saying
what's
there was
happening in
no
other
truth to
parts of
this
the country,
whatsoever,
what's happening with
referring
our
to an
country,
opinion piece
and just
that
watch
his
some of this for a
ex-wife
little bit.
wrote in the Washington Post.
If you don't want to watch
Off
it, feel
this
free
moment.
to now, but I'm glad you're here, those of you that are here.
His testimony is bizarre and unrelatable right out of the gate, Sandra. As a trial lawyer, this is why I don't like to put my clients on the witness stand. He has to do it because he's the one who's the plaintiff in this case. But there's not a single juror who sees themselves in Johnny Depp right now. I don't know if he's just that bizarre or he's not practiced at all. Maybe they should have listed his lines out so he could memorize them and talk about his feelings. But this is just bizarre.
It seems that at some points it's been like a therapy
They're
session
back.
for him.
She just
talking
asked
about
him,
his
how do you feel
past,
about
upbringing,
his father or
childhood,
something?
His fatherhood. This all happened when his children, he pointed out, were 14 and 16 years old. It seems like a cry for help even at some points, Mark. But quickly before we go back.
Correct. And you know why the defense isn't objecting? Because you don't take the noose out of someone's hand when they're hanging themselves. They're saying, go for it. This is ridiculous.
When asked why he's doing it and having the personal details of his life there, he says he can't be embarrassed because I know what I'm doing. It is right. It is the right thing, he said. Let's listen.
Until I learned the truth from him.
And without getting into what your father told you, how has your impression of your father changed now?
Objection, relevance.
Your Honor, this is just an understanding of his perception of his family.
I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Mr. Depp, what have you learned from your experience in your childhood and observing your father in your childhood?
I learned that I was wrong about my first impressions of his exit from the family. Very wrong. And I'll tell you one thing that I learned that was one of the best lessons I believe I've ever learned in my life, ever could learn in my life, was based on my experiences as a child and what I'd seen and experienced. I knew exactly how to raise children. When my girl Vanessa got pregnant, I knew exactly how to raise children, which was to do the opposite of what they did, of what Betty Sue did. Never raise your voice in front of the children, never. Screaming out the word no to them. I never wanted to tell my kids no. I wanted to tell them that I wanted to show them that there were options. You don't have to stick the coat hanger in the electrical socket. You know, saying no is an abrupt thing, but to talk to them and say, if you understand the repercussions of something, then you won't go there. So maybe think about this as opposed to this. Give this some thought, you know, but that will clearly, that could kill you. So I would ease them away from um, things of that nature with a more of a conversation as opposed to a you know, a flat out don't you ever do that again and threats and things of that nature. I did not raise my children that way, nor did Vanessa. We never raised our voices in front of our children ever.
How do you
And
think your experiences with your parents in your childhood affected your approach to your relationship with Miss Heard?
I'm sorry, one more time.
How did your experiences observing your parents as a child affect your approach to your relationship with Miss Heard?
Well, in the beginning of my relationship with Miss Heard, there was, from what I recall and what I remember, she was it was as if she was too good to be true. She was attentive, she was loving, she was smart, she was kind, she was funny, she was understanding, and we had many things in common, certain blues music and, well, music, literature, things of that nature. So for that year or year and a half, it was amazing. There were a couple of things that, I don't know, stuck in my head that I noticed that I thought might be a little bit of a dilemma at some point. For example, I worked quite a lot, and when I would come home from work, I would come in the house or the hotel, and she would sit me down on the couch and give me a glass of wine and take my boots off, set them to the side, and I'd never experienced anything like that in my life. I just never thought that was, I just never experienced that before. And it became a regular thing that she did, this kind of routine. And I remember one night I came home from work and I think she was on the phone or something and or busy. She was doing something. And so I sat down on the couch and I took my boots off and suddenly Miss Heard approached with this look on her face and she just said, "What did you just do?" What did you do? So what do you mean? You took your boots off. I said, yeah, yes, I did. Well, you were busy, you know. No, that's my job. That's what I do. You don't do that. I do that. Okay, all right then. And then she said, let me get you a glass of wine. And she brought me the glass of wine. But I did take pause, of course, at the fact that she was visibly shaken or upset that I had broken her rules of routine. I thought that strange. And then once you notice something like that, then you start to notice other little tidbits and things that come out. And then within a year and a half, she had become this another person almost.
Mr. Depp, we're going to talk about Miss Hurt in a couple minutes, but I'd like to first talk about your career in Hollywood. And so could you please tell the jury how you ended up acting in the first place?
I ended up acting by accident. I was a musician and I'd moved out to Los Angeles with my band when I was 20 years old. And then there were a couple of things that happened in the band where the band split up. And I remember I was filling out job applications, and then Nick, with a friend of mine, and who happens to be, he was an actor, less known then than he is now, Nicolas Cage. And I was filling out job applications at any, video stores, clothing stores, anything, and just to be able to pay the rent. And Nick Cage said, why don't you meet my agent, because I think you're an actor. I think you could be an actor. And I said, look, I'll meet anybody, I'll do anything at this point. And so he sent me to his agent, Eileen Feldman, and I met with her. She sent me to read for a casting director named Annette Benson, who was casting a film called The Nightmare on Elm Street. And they brought me back to read for the director, Wes Craven. And I read for Wes Craven and somehow got the job. But I mean, I was by no means an actor. I didn't have any desire to be an actor. I was a musician. But the fact that these people were going to pay me what I found to be a ludicrous sum of money, which was it was kind of the SAG minimum. It was $1,284 a week, which I mean, I'd never seen that kind of dough before in my life. And so I suddenly, and then I did some other couple of dumb movies because I still, in my mind, I was a musician, and this was just a way to.
I wonder which movies he considers dumb movies that he did.
Bills, live. Then suddenly I found myself on that road. I had been placed on that road as an actor, and then one thing led to another from film to film, and then I was cast in a TV series called 21 Jump Street when I was 22, I believe.
Mr. Depp, between the time that you were cast in Nightmare on Elm Street and you were cast in 21 Jump Street, how did you enjoy acting during that time?
it was foreign to me. It was foreign to me, but I didn't have any great ambition to be an actor. I'm a naturally, normally, I've always been quite a shy person. I've always been quite introverted, and so
Donnie Brasco was one of the best, one of his best movies. Great movie.
metamorphosis from being one of four, that is to say, one of four in a band where you have this fraternity or this brotherhood, and you're out there fighting the world together to try to get that record deal or whatever you're looking for. And when I got on this series and my life started to change in various ways, that is to say that people started to, you go into a restaurant and you'd see people whispering and pointing and all that. I was very uncomfortable with it. I was very uncomfortable with it, and I didn't like it. Just because I never wanted to be the lead singer and the guy out front and will get all the attention, and I didn't. So suddenly I was on my own, and I was having to deal with this newfound sort of notoriety, and it was odd. It was very odd, and it was. Yeah, it was a very uncomfortable thing. I mean, I don't think it's anything that one can get used to. I don't. I wouldn't. I'm not. I'm still not used to it now, and which I'm actually glad that I'm not used to it. Because if I were, I don't think I'd be the same person that I am.
Mr. Depp, did there come a time when you became passionate about acting?
Once I realized that that's the road that I was on, and that any attempt at going back to music would be a
Kathy Martis, you still here? You still here? You didn't like any of his movies at all? You didn't like Donnie Brasco or the Pirates of the Caribbean movie or any of that stuff? The Black Mass was real good. True story about Whitey Bulger. He did some good stuff.
I had to realize in my own mind and heart that there was no going back to music, because I didn't want to, I didn't want to use whatever amount of success that I had attained from the TV series and that sort of thing. I didn't want to use that to influence, some career in music. I had far too much respect for music than to just become what they wanted me to become, which was a teen idol or a teeny, that's that sort of thing. I fought that with everything in my being. So once I realized that music was no longer an option, then
You have been watching the trial of Johnny Depp. We were warned heading into this he would not hold back. He is testifying in his own case, his defamation case against ex-wife Amber Heard, telling the jury how she ruined his career and created false claims of violence. Very little of that we've actually gotten to in his testimony so far, Trace. A lot of what we have heard so far is background on Johnny Depp, his upbringing, his family. But on that Washington Post op-ed that Amber Heard, his ex-wife, published back.
Oh yeah, how can I forget Edward Scissorhands? Holy crap.
The reason for
Classic.
this case,
That's a
he
good
said
one.
there's no truth to it whatsoever. He felt a responsibility of clearing the record and said on the record, "I never struck her or any woman in his life."
And it's a little unclear exactly, Senator, what they're trying to get at here. They're kind of establishing the fact that Johnny Depp says that his parents, or at least his mother, was somewhat abusive, and therefore he would never go down that road. I want to bring in Mark Aglarsh here because he's clearly.
I wish they would just let him talk. I want to hear it. It's fascinating to listen to him. Another good one was Public Enemies, the story of John Dillinger, Chicago mobster, bank robber. Good stuff. Crybaby was okay. Benny and June, that's funny. Yeah, I'm looking at the whole list right now. Once Upon a Time in Mexico, he was in that. The Tourist, he was in that too. Platoon, he had a small role in Platoon. That was an awesome movie. Rum Diaries are good. There's a bunch of stuff. If you just don't like him, well, that's a whole other story too. But I think he did some decent things.
In a very difficult libel.
I don't like this dude. I wish they would just let him talk. Listen to Johnny Depp.
Million. She's countersuing for $100 million. He is fighting back against what he called diabolical domestic abuse claims by Amber Heard.
Gilbert Grape, yep.
Sake. He detailed, Mark, that his children were 14 and 16 at the time of that Washington Post op-ed. But digging into his mother, he said that she was unpredictable and it had the ability to be as cruel as anyone could be, labeling her as violent. A lot of the Twitter sphere right now is pointing out that if the allegations of Amber Heard being violent are true, perhaps he married someone like his mother. We have to hear her story as well. But this is really something to see. Final thought, Mark.
Oh.
He has to prove that what she was saying
Rango
is a lie. And at best, I think the jurors might say, you know what? We're not really sure. He failed to meet his burden. I don't know why he's doing this. It's not clearing his name. Quite frankly, it's going to raise more questions in the court of public opinion.
All right. He says the acts that she detailed in that piece are not based in any species of truth, is how he led things off today. We thank Mark Aglarsh for staying with us throughout this trial, and it will continue, and it will be covered here on the Fox News channel. And Trace, great to have you here.
Yeah, it's been great to hear. I just want to note that, you know, while this is going on here, it's not just Amber Heard's allegations, because there have been testimony, has been a lot of testimony.
Legend of Sleepy Hollow. How can you not dig that? I'm not saying it was an epic movie, but come on, it was good.
Yeah, great to be with you as well.
And great to have you. I'm Sandra Smith.
I'm Trace Gallagher. The story starts right after this.
Veteran homeowners.
All right, I don't want to see any more of this for now. If they come back to a live courtroom, I will come back with that. Otherwise, I don't need to watch Fox News right now. Thanks for hanging out for a little bit. Hopefully, you got some insight on Johnny Depp and his defamation of character suit against his ex-wife, Amber Heard. I think he's a likable dude. Seems to be sincere. So, I don't know, think what you want. I think he did some pretty decent movies. And I'll start with, oh man, he was good in Platoon. Not a big part, but he was good in Platoon. Black Mass, he did real good. He played Whitey Bulger. Great movie. It's on HBO Max right now. So anyway, I'll check in with you guys a little bit later. I'm feeling better. I'm not there yet, but I'm better.